Hello everybody. I would like to thank the Sofia Game Jam organization and especially Amusnet for letting me talk to you today. Let me tell you first a bit about myself. I started streaming a few years ago. I streamed for 5 or 6 years. This is the end screen of my stream. For over a decade, I've been a part of different gaming projects in Bulgaria, especially gaming shows like Africa TV, Limbo, and Tezi TV. Some of you might have heard of them. We did a weekly program with a different group of streamers where you can enjoy and nerd with us on different kinds of topics and games. Progressively, this hobby of mine evolved and I became a host and a co-host of different gaming shows, including a YouTube one, and for 1 year we did a gaming show on TV. And of course I had to include a fan art of a viewer of mine. This is how I see myself when I play video games. I play a lot of Dark Souls, and especially I play with a Zweihander, and my character is almost naked because I have to roll. So big ups to my viewers. I respect them to this day. The average age of my viewers was about 27 years old, so the chat was pretty cool place. In order to not do the presentation all about me, I'm going to tell you about my software experience instead of showing you all of my works, because it's too much, it's definitely too much. I started with 3ds Max, which helped me understand 3D models and volumes. I work with V-Ray, which helped me understand lighting and the different parts of lighting, like global illumination, scatter lighting. Also helped me understand materials like subsurface scattering and things like that. Then I moved on to ZBrush. ZBrush was a cool part of my life because it's the dream of an artist. It was the dream of an artist. Now there are so many programs to choose from. And in ZBrush, I learned a lot about human anatomy because I had to scoop it. Well, with the progress of time, all of this was replaced with my favorite software and the all-time great Blender. I think this is an amazing piece of software and it's completely free. Let's move to animation. I used to use I used to use Flash and Animate, and now I'm using Spine, which is the topic of today's discussion. This program right here, quickly in the past 3 or 4 years, turned into my top 2 favorite softwares of all time. And lastly, but not least, I use Photoshop and After Effects, and over years of experience and finding different softwares to use, I upgraded Photoshop and After Effects to Photoshop and After Effects. Those of you who know. My dream in life, everyone has an ultimate goal. I dream to make video games. So I think I'm in the right place when I say I'm looking for developers to make the 111th clone of Vampire Survivors. I'm telling you, there's something I can guarantee to you right now if you join my team and risk and destroy your free time to create this project. We're gonna have the money, the power, the whole enchilada, the good girls, the bad girls, and I want to get sick by eating gold-crusted steak. Right now, I'm working in Amusnet Interactive. For the past 4 years, I've been working as an animator professionally. In Amusnet, we use primarily Spine and After Effects to make those kinds of animations. These things right here, not only they look cool in my opinion, but also are made in a relatively short span of time. The thing that makes you a good animator, especially in Amusnet and with the tight schedules and deadlines, you have to know a lot of methods, a lot of principles, and a lot of ways to make a given animation, and you have to pick the best one to give you the best result in the given time you have to make. Also, many of us are gamers, I guess, and casino games are not very gaming oriented for some of us, because you know there's no stats to upgrade, there's no damage per second and stuff like that. But I can tell you this, considering the gaming sphere of online casinos, especially art and animation, I find it very creative and inspiring for every day. I can give you an example. There was a week where I had to animate the mythical Monkey King Wukong, and for the next day, the next week, I have to animate a sweet old lady with a dog. And the next week after that, I animate a tornado with sharks in it or something like that. These are some full screen animations. I would have liked to show. I would love to show you some of the great examples that I had in mind, but sadly, the games are under NDA and I couldn't show you. But you can check our site and see some great character-based games that we did with a little bit more complex animations and phases and stuff like that. But games are still not released. Try it in a month. Let's talk about Spine, boys and girls. One of my favorite pieces of software ever. If some of you haven't heard of it, this is going to change your view of animations, and I hope to inspire some of you to just get this software and give it a try. What is Spine? If I had to describe it in a few words, Spine is a bone-based animation software with a twist. It has a twist. We're going to talk about the twist later. Let's see what bone-based means. As you can see, this is directly captured in Spine. You set up your bones, you set up the rig, you give them some constraints and logic on how to move, and then you attach images to it. One key point I like to make is that Spine can't create images. So you have to have your assets pre-prepared for this stuff. If you have the images neatly packed and cut out and stuff like that, and you add it in Spine, you can have great results. But if you don't have images or any assets and you go in Spine and do some cool rig, come on, man, what you doing? You're going to be laughed out the building. Unless you want to make some cool-looking renders of a rig and funky-looking bone structures. Okay, this part of the lecture will go a bit technical in Spine and what you can do with bones, but I can promise you that the other half will go both through the wall. Let's talk about constraints. Spine is a 2D bone-based animation software, and the first thing you can do with bones, the basic stuff, is AK constraints, inverse kinematics. Next, we have transform constraints, where you can constrain the movement of one bone to follow in a given way the changes in another bone. In this example, the yellow bone follows exactly the opposite type of movement the blue bone does. You can do that with rotation, you can do that with scale also. I want you to pinpoint that in your mind because later we're going to have some crazy example with this. And of course the path constraint, you can move them along the path, draw your own path, touch the spacing and stuff like that for the animation. The cool thing is that those three types of constraints you can combine and get even more crazy results and complex rigs in the program. As you can see right here, I have full control of the elbow or the knee, whatever you like to see. Right here, I have the blue standard IK constraint, but you can see I don't have control over the elbow. With this setup right here, which I use IK plus transform constraint, I have full control over the limb. Next, we can see that with only 2 bones, IK setup, we can control a lot of bones. For example, deforming a path for animating a tentacle or stuff that, a tail or stuff like that. Well, here comes the twist. I told you about the twist. The twist is right here, right now. The twist is meshes. Spine lets you create meshes over your objects. Let's see the process really slowly. We take the image of this rock out of Google, or some artist may draw it for you, and we create a mesh. Here I like to point out that background in 3D really helps me consider where I want to put those points, those vertices of the mesh. This is 2D, this is completely 2D, but what this allows me to do is now I can manipulate those vertices and get those kinds of deformation in the program. Even cooler, I don't want to select different points all the time and moving around. Spine lets you assign weights to the vertices. So as you can see, this mesh right here has two bones binded to it, and you can assign weights to the given points in vertices. You can see these pie charts right here. They represent the vertices, and every pie chart shows you the influence of every bone on this point. And now I can animate using only one bone, which is pretty handy and saves you a lot of time, and you get great results. In my opinion, amazing results. And this gets even more satisfying and more visually appealing when you apply it to the human face or some more complex forms. You can see right here, we have one bone moving the face and deforming it in different ways. And now, I call you to bring back the point about transform constraints. I'm gonna add a different bone that goes behind the point of rotation and bind another bone, and we can see an even greater effect of depth right here. These points right here are not moving realistically, but right now you can see the head going way behind from the original position. So, let me quickly recap what we are talking about. We create the mesh, we weight the mesh, and even the simplest of arts with the simplest of rigs can give you amazing results like these. Right now we are moving only one bone. Something else Spine has added recently, I've had the enjoyment of trying it last week, and for an example you're about to see later, we now can add bone physics to your bones, which is something that reacts real time in your game. You can imagine that using meshes and using bones combined, you get stuff like this. Another feature I would like to point out before we go to the crazy part is the skins feature of Spine, where you neatly prepare your assets in the game files, you separate them in different folders, and with one rig and one animation, you can change between different skins. And you can even mix and match, for example, giving the katana to the knight, or the helmet to the girl, or this guy's glasses to somebody else. Really cool feature, and you can fully customize it, for example, your characters in game and doing interesting stuff with that. One of the big advantages of Spine in our work in Amusnet, we make casino games, and our consumer base mainly plays on phone or in ported view, and it's important that the assets are performance friendly. This is a standard export of a 2D animation. You can see this is a sprite sheet. Sprite sheets can get pretty heavy and pretty crazy when you have a lot of animations, and especially when you have high resolution of your art. And really clogs up your RAM, and you have to do different optimizations. This is what you get from Spine. What you can see on the left is an atlas image where we neatly separated all the parts of the art we want to animate, and on the right we have all the rig and animations exported in a JSON file, and everything in there holds all the information about the animation. You can see for these guys the animation file is 100 kilobytes, and you get stuff like this. This is one of my arts and animations for a indie project I did years ago. I gotta say, I'm a much better artist now, but here's what I'm about to show you. A different example is something you can also do and add functionality to your animations. You can see this is a UI animation of different buttons, for example, a main menu. And this bone right here, which is selected, you can see he moves with the idle animation of the menu buttons. Your developers can use this bone, add text or an image or anything else to it, and keep it in line and move with the animation of the other things, which looks a lot cooler. And another thing is, you can see these text right here, this text right here that pops up. These are called events. We can add events in Spine, and then your developers may take these events and play different kinds of stuff, damage sounds, damage per second meters, stuff like that. You can add everything with events, and you can have unlimited events in your game. And now we get to the crazy part of the presentation. I didn't want to get too technical about Spine, even though the presentation is about Spine. I think doing something practical will truly sell you on the software. So I decided to animate this screen. This is the campaign screen of the orcs from Warcraft 3 Reforged. Obviously, I wanted to animate it for some reason. We'll get to see why soon. Let me first show you some examples where I would recommend using Spine. Not that I don't like these games. Hades for me is one of the greatest games ever made. But I think without changing the main game, which is 3D, stylized 3D, all the characters that go and show in the UI, for example, this guy right here, Charon, or characters that show up in dialogue boxes, those guys can use Spine just to give your player a smoother, more pleasant experience while playing the game. Well, I'm an animator, so when I see something static standing for too long, I want to animate it, but definitely these cases right here are places where you can use Spine for a relatively low cost of performance, because Spine is killer in performance. It gives you great results in a matter of kilobytes. Of course, characters to the art where it's in the main menu or full screen menu, and of course on the buttons. As I showed you earlier, I use Spine for animating some of the buttons. You can do great deformations on these buttons right here. And now we start preparing the orc. I would like to put a disclaimer here. The whole thing I'm about to show you, I did it in 3 days in my free time. So it's a bit rough in some areas, but just to show you in a small amount of time what you can do with this software is just amazing. Firstly, and that was the first day, which was not animation at all, I took a print screen from the slide I showed you earlier and started cutting down the orc. Some of the parts I had to fill with content aware or spot healing brush, you know. There was an axe right here, so I had to fill it in order to move the axe later and not look funky. I filled all those things. I prepared them neatly in Photoshop, named all my layers. And then another cool thing is this is the stuff prepared in Photoshop. I put my guides and I use Photoshop to Spine script, which is given from the developers of Spine esoteric software. This is the menu. And we tell it, okay, export it there, do this stuff, scale 100% and stuff like that. And this is how it arrives in Spine. Oh, the covers look strange. Well, he has a sunburn. And I don't have to do any manual positioning or anything like that. Everything arrives exactly as it was in Photoshop. And we start creating the bones. We start creating the rig. Here we set up some basic IK for the beginning. Of course, later for the final stage of the animation, I'm going to use the more complex IK setup that I showed you earlier, where I want to have control over the elbow. This slide right here shows you the final bone setup of the orc. You can see these are the more complex stuff. And something that was completely new, released for the mortals last week, are those physics constraints. You can see right here. I haven't used them before, but I thought, okay, let's give it a go. And I'm pretty happy with the results, although there are some issues that arise later. But you can see these are physics constraints. And when I move the whole body, I don't have to do any animation on these parts. They just move real time and simulate physics. The next step is we mesh everything. We want to have cool deformation on the orc, so we start creating a mesh. First we define the silhouette, then we create the whole mesh, because of course 3D background helps, and where I want to have a cool deformation on, or depending how I want to move the form, you can see how I constructed the horns. I want them to have this twisty motion. This is the way I set up the mesh. Experience helps with creating meshes, of course. You test different setups and they give you different results. Here's some more meshing on the axe. I think these are the two main focal points for the animation, the face and the axe. These are the two things I'm going to focus to move more than everything else. And then we wait. We assign weights to the vertices. And you can see the kinds of deformation I'm about to get with moving only one bone. This is the face, looking pretty good for a couple of hours of work. And this is the axe. Not moving perfectly, of course, but then again, I didn't have a week. And now the rig is complete. You can see all parts are weighted, all parts are meshed, all parts are moving in the desired way. I wanted to record the animation part of this thing, but then again, this is not an animation tutorial. I just want to show you the spine. So we're going to skip some time with that and just go to the results. Firstly, I'm going to show you how it looks in the original game. So let's see. Blizzard Entertainment proudly invites you to return and experience the adventure once again. I swear to you, he is moving. I'm not sure if you can see it on this, with these strange colors and these contrast right now, but he is moving. I haven't bought Reforged, so it was a surprise to me when I saw that one. And as an animator, I said to myself, this has to move. So DEST Corporation presents somebody is messing with my slides. I'm sorry. But of course, depending on the anticipation, it would have had a really great effect. Let's do this properly. 3DEST Games presents this is the final result. I didn't want to do any crazy animations and any crazy effects, even though I tried adding some aura around the orc, aura around the axe. But then again, the final result we're looking for is just an idle screen where the player will choose some missions and some buttons. This is the money screen right here. This is the comparison between the two orcs. And finally, the main difference between the two, excluding the animation, is this. We consider that both of them have to have the art assets, because if you don't have the art assets, you don't have the art. But the animation, they have some animation right here done simply with code or stuff like that. I don't know the size of this animation, but I can tell you the size of the JSON I animated this orc with, and it's 175 kilobytes. For a game that's 30 gigabytes, that's pretty good. And also, this size right here includes the rig, the meshes, and all that information. That means that I can add 2 or 3 different animations more on top of it, and it won't go above 500 kilobytes, you know? As closing thoughts, I would like to remind you that I'm looking for indie Unity developers to make a game. We're going to have this, das, and that, and O. And I'd like to thank you for being present. And please, if you have any questions.
Well, we definitely got my attention. Yeah, if there are any questions, please.
There's a hand right there.
Yes.
Do you know any popular games using Spine?
Oh yeah, two of my favorite games that use Spine are Darkest Dungeon and Coat of the Lamp. That was the name, yeah, Coat of the Lamp. And also 90% of the 2D mobile games that impressed you with any kind of animation are using Spine. Because again, Spine is very friendly on performance.
Great. Thank you.
If there are any other questions, yeah.
Yeah, hello. I want to ask you, what do you think about using Spine with AI technology like Midjourney or something like that? Because if you don't have any animation experience, I guess that would be a very good starting point.
Well, the important thing right here is to ask you, are you talking about AI for generating the image assets or AI for the animation?
For the animation, for the image assets.
Well, for the image assets, as you saw right here, the thing I did is I started from a static image, and AI generates great static images. And you can just cut it out and animate it. But when you go to AI for animation, the final result, the files that you can give to your developers are a sequence. And it's not performance friendly at all.
Thank you.
Is there no one else?
Is there no one else? All right. Thank you again
All right,
for this
thank you very much,
presentation.
guys.